balmy November 12th day. As they say, the weather in Alberta, if you don't like it, just wait 24 hours, and that's what we had the last couple days. We got from minus 25 to plus 3 today, so which is excellent. Members of council, you have an agenda before you. Can I have an adoption, please? Deputy Mayor?
That council accept the meeting for Tuesday, November 12th.
Thank you. Administration, anything to add? Right. Administration, anything to add? Thank you very much. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to next item is public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to talk to council regarding anything that's not on the current agenda. We have 5 minutes for every presentation, and today we have one registered, and Mr. Stafrak, welcome. So you're first to go. Again, there's a little sign-up sheet if you can sign in, and then you have 5 minutes, and then after that, council gets the chance to ask you questions of clarity and understanding.
Okay, thank you. I have signed in.
Thank you. Ahead of the game. I'm glad our staff are on top of it.
My name is Kirk Staffirik. I am resident and owner of 5022 52nd Ave. Myself and my neighbors' properties are subjected to flooding during any rainstorms due to the massive amount of water that is funneled directly to the drain on 51st Street beside my backyard. The drain on 51st Street is an original drain made of bricks that is compromised after the 70 years. The water has deteriorated the bricks. The ground around the drain bubbles up through cracks in the concrete during a storm. I have surveyed the blocks that surround me and found that there are no drains on the south side of 52nd Ave. So the water flows freely from downtown back to 51st Street drain. 53rd Ave from the Glen Hall Arena back to 51st Street also has no drains, and that is on either side of the street. The 51st Street drain is built with an overflow pipe that spills water into the back alley, which floods all the properties within the block. Essentially, our properties are being used as a stormwater overflow system that causes property damage depending upon the duration and intensity of the rainstorm. The vast majority of water that comes to the 51st Street drain is coming from the St. Matthew's Church and Senior Citizens Drop-In Center parking lot. This parking lot with a back lane is 100% pavement, and the large commercial structures like the Senior Citizens Building and the Stony Plain United Church are feeding rainwater into the back alley, and it flows freely back to 51st Street, then down to the 51st Street drain. There is far too much overland water produced by these parking lots of pavement and large commercial buildings to not have drains strategically placed to capture this water before it travels towards residential properties. This new tax proposed recently on the Town of Stony Plain Facebook page states that the proposed storm model would see a user pay philosophy carried out by way of tiered flat fee structure based on the type of property, which is an indicator of the degree it impacts the storm system. To my understanding of this, the large commercial buildings and commercial properties of pavement or concrete that produce the water will be paying the higher tiered flat fee versus residential property owners. Residential land hardly produces overland water. They absorb a lot of water during a storm. We need this tax. This tax is necessary in bringing Stony Plain's stormwater management system into the 21st century. New ideas like stormwater ponds and expanding many parts of the creek system into stormwater pond areas is exactly what this town needs. I am strongly suggesting that a stormwater pond be built at 5018 52nd Ave to help the 51st Street drain, and another stormwater pond should be built at the Lions Playground using the back lanes of Stony Plain to connect the new pipes. If no stormwater ponds are built in Old Town, then property owners will forever be faced with property damage. I am very interested in what the plan will be moving forward. I am unable to develop my land any farther, not knowing when or if what will be done is going to be enough to help the 51st Street drain issue.
Okay, thank you for coming and presenting. Can you, you made a suggestion of Lions Playground, which we kind of talked about earlier, but you said 5008?
5018 52nd Ave,
Okay,
the vacant property.
so that's a vacant lot, that's east of you, I believe?
Yes.
Okay. East of his property. His property is 5002.
5022.
Okay. So thank you for presenting and making your suggestions. So from what I gather is your property gets flooded out as more rain gets into that area. And from that area, the whole thing comes down and pools down 51st, 52nd Avenue, and it gets into your backyards. Is that correct? Okay. And you mentioned something about that is old as a brick. As a brick.
Made of bricks. The drain inside is made of bricks.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's been a long time ago. I think that needs to be changed eventually.
World War II, I would assume.
Thanks. Administration, any comments regarding the drainage in that area?
Your worship, so the areas which are the resident has brought forward today are included in the study that council approved in August. So at this time, we are proceeding in the initial stages of securing the contractor, excuse me, and working through the details on where the various improvements might be. And the feedback today would be used to provide it to the consultant, and we'll be looking into this further.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions of clarity and understanding? No. No. Okay. So thank you again for providing your comments, and I appreciate you speaking in favor of the new storm management utility. I think we've collected taxes to do stuff, but smaller stuff. And after our study, we realized that we do not collect enough to address some of the issues that we've had accumulate in the past and the new issues that will come up forward. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank
Would you mind providing a copy of that for our administration?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, and continuing on with our public input session, this is the time that we allow residents to address council on anything that's not on the current agenda. Anybody else in the chambers like to address council? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next point. Agenda item is presentations and delegations, and today we have two presentations. So the first one is the Salvation Army, so welcome ladies. Again, there is a sign-up sheet there if you can sign up. Introduce yourselves to council before you start. The mics are a little touchy, so please speak directly into the mics.
Good evening. Thank you for letting us be here tonight. I'm Major Joanne Cook with the Salvation Army, and this is my kettle worker for Spruce Grove and Stony Plain, Karina Baudouin. And we just have a bit of a slide presentation here to share with you. So my husband and I are co-pastors with the Salvation Army. He's senior pastor by 15 seconds. He was ordained before me. And so we were ordained together, so he was ordained before me. So when he says, well, I'm senior pastor, and I just remind him what the time frame is, and that all works out good. So this is our 2019 Christmas Salvation Army Kettle Campaign. The Salvation Army has had kettles for many years. It's part of for this area, we are looking to raise $400,000, and it's to help people who hit a speed bump in their month. They get more month than money. Sorry, lean closer. And they run short on rent. It might be they had a sick day during the month and they run short on rent, or they run short on paying their utilities, or they run out of gas money. It's along those lines. We're glad to be able to work with FCSS in the area to assist folks in Spruce Grove and Stony Plain. So the Kettle Campaign, it started in San Francisco in 1881. Captain McPhee, with the Salvation Army, was looking for a way to help provide meals to families who were in need. And he remembered the Simpsons pot, which was used in Liverpool, England, into which passers-by threw charitable donations. So Captain McPhee decided to place a similar pot at the Oakland ferry landing, and he was able to attract donations from those going to and from the ferry boats. So the history of kettles in Canada was first used in St. John's, Newfoundland in 1906, and every year at over 2,000 locations across Canada, and they are used to collect money to support the work of the Salvation Army. The St. Albert Salvation Army's Christmas fundraising activities play a crucial role in sharing the spirit of the season with families in the communities of Parkland County throughout the coming year. So where does the money go? Well, across Canada, the donations collected in the Christmas kettles are used in the communities in which it is located, helping to provide emergency food, winter clothing, prescription medications, groceries, transportation, addiction treatment, budget counseling, after-school programs, as well as outreach to our friends living on the streets. And the Salvation Army Community and Family Services offices are located throughout the province, and each office serves designated communities. So who or what are bell ringers and smilers? I love that phrase. We need bell ringers and smilers. A bell ringer is someone, or a smiler is someone who stands beside the Salvation Army Christmas kettle, greets and receives donations from passers-by. The shifts that we ask people to cover are usually 2 hours. We're flexible though. If someone can only do one, then we just do one. But they're usually 2 hours in length. They ring bells where permitted. I have been offered $10 by someone in Safeway to stop ringing the bell, so it can get a little agitating for some people. But they ring bells where permitted, and to just remind people that those in need in Christmas within our community. Kettles are typically located in malls and inside retail stores from mid-November until December 24th, and in fact, our kettle campaign for this area started today. So 90 to 95% of monies collected are invested back into donating communities, with a small percentage going to administration. In 2018, our campaign raised over $357,000. Thank you for my interpreter. Our 2018 Kettle campaign was supported by over 300 volunteers. We have an awesome volunteer luncheon in February, and we fill the place. In 2018, over 66,000 was collected in loose coin. So when someone comes up and says, I only have this much coin, I don't have very much, and we say that works. And I can tell you that by the end of the campaign, my kettle room people are just, their fingers are feeling a little numb by doing all the rolling. Our 2019 goal is $400,000 to assist our communities. And our volunteers indicate that the bell ringer opportunities are some of the most rewarding seasonal experiences which they and their families enjoy. So how can you help? Please visit our kettle ringers throughout the coming Christmas season. Please consider donating and investing back into the most vulnerable persons and families in our communities. Please consider volunteering for 2 hours or more and or encouraging others to help, and please consider adopting a kettle from your work for a day or more and manning the kettle. And we've had many successful stories of businesses, schools, teachers bring some of their students, and they help out at the kettles as well. These are our contacts, and yep. And Heidi Randall was one of our coordinators, and then she found out just last week she got a full-time job. So our loss, their gain, and off she went. and our email address as well. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much for the presentation and just sharing a little bit of history about the Salvation Cattle Campaign. Members of council, any questions of clarity and understanding? Councillor Matthews?
I'm a bell ringer and smiler, so I enjoyed that last year very much with my husband.
Great.
My question is, with regards to, you gave a list of, all the supports you provide. How do people access that?
Through this area, they access through FCSS. Sometimes they'll call us directly, but we, with working closely with FCSS, we're able to assist them with what their need is.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? So again, on behalf of our community and council, thank you very much for the work that you do in our communities. I think it was St. Albert, Spruce Grove, and Stony Plain is your area, and appreciate the fact that, as you mentioned, sometimes there's more days in the month than there is funds, and I'm glad that you guys are there to assist our residents to make sure that they get over that hurdle so that they can continue on being members of the community, and also then again giving them that added advantage, just that hand up versus the handouts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, council, moving on with presentations and delegations, we have 4.2, which is a presentation by the Sturgeon Watershed Alliance. Is there members from the Alliance here today?
Oh, I'm here.
Councillor Meyer, yes, Councillor Meyer, you're our appointee, but I do not see anybody here from the administrative side. All right, so we'll go from here. Members of council, you read the presentation and the slide deck. We'll make it, we'll leave it up to that. Members of council, any questions of understanding and clarity? And we hope that Councillor Meyer is able to answer some of them. If not, we'll ask him to bring it back to the board, the advisory board, and they can bring that back to us. How's that sound, Councillor Meyer?
I'm going to get my notes or my book out and be ready to write down your questions.
Okay, so let's start with you, Councillor Meyer. We'll give you, you've been to a few meetings. Why don't you give us kind of a verbal update of what's happening in the Sturgeon Valley Alliance watershed, and then we'll go from there.
Well, this particular report is been a long time coming. I did mention to you guys earlier that I thought this report was going to be coming out much sooner. So obviously it's finally arrived. In terms of what does, it mostly lays out what responsibilities they would like municipalities to participate in willingly. I know at our last meeting, they had taken this to a number of councils who were quite concerned that this was kind of locking them into a certain set of things. I'd like to just say to council that this is more, while the first steps are aligning sort of even just the verbiage that is used. And then next step will be aligning policies. And it is specifically to be on a voluntary basis what we can manage without burdening staff and that like. So I would, if everyone has read it, I would encourage us to adopt it because I think it offers a lot of opportunities for more maybe our administration, but it does offer council also learning opportunities. So when we are making decisions on land use and whatnot, I think the Tussock area would be a good example of where maybe considering the water issues there, it would be just, it would fill out our knowledge and help us all make well-informed decisions on those types of things.
Thank you very much, Councillor Meyer. Members of council, any questions for understanding and clarity? Yes.
I'm just wondering, are they giving this presentation in Spruce Grove? And could that be the reason that they're late? And if so, could we just go further down into our meeting rather than, because I did read it and I think it's a very good presentation, but if this is a decision that our council has to make, I think that having their administration would help us. So I'm just wondering if you know if they are giving the presentation to Spruce Grove right now, in past when that's happened, organizations give presentations to two councils on the same night, then we've just kind of gone on down the,
Right, so, as mentioned, they're not on the agenda in Spruce Grove. Oh, there she is. Welcome to council chambers. Thank you. You're just in time, because I think Councilor Meyer did an excellent job, but we need more information. Yes.
Yes.
No worries.
I did send an email. Did you get my email?
No.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, they've already downloaded it.
Okay.
There was an accident on the Henday, just at the bridge over in the North Saskatchewan. So I sent an email to you and Leanne, so.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you. And again, there's a sign-up sheet there. If you can just sign in your name and just introduce yourself to members of council to your position, your role with the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, please. And then you're welcome to start when you're ready. Becky.
Great. Well, thanks again for your patience and waiting for me. My name is Leah Kongtrud. I'm the Executive Director at the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. I'm in here instead of Anne-Lisa Jensen, who is actually the chair of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. The Rural Municipalities Association meeting is this weekend. She's triple booked. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I have a short presentation. So about a year ago, we were here and chatted with you about the work of the Sturgeon River Watershed. So really we're here to kind of give you an update, talk to you a little bit about what we've completed in the last year. And I guess probably most excitingly is that we do have a draft watershed management plan to provide you, and then just talk about the next steps. So it should only take about 15 or 20 minutes, and then of course I'll be open to any questions you might have. So just a bit of a background review in case some of you are new, is the Sturgeon River is it's a small precipitation and groundwater fed prairie river. It's only about 260 kilometers in length, and it starts in Entwistle in Parkland County. It flows through several lakes, which is quite unusual for small Alberta rivers, through Isle Lake, Lac St. Anne, Devil's Lake or Machawa Lake, and Big Lake. And then it joins the North Saskatchewan River just east of Gibbons. So besides the river itself, the watershed is actually all of the land that actually drains into the Sturgeon River. So the area is about 3,300 square kilometers, and it includes also some major creeks, Kalani Creek, Carrot Creek, some other creeks, just blanking, Adam Creek, that's the one I'm trying to think of. So around 2012, there was some watershed planning that was started by the city of St. Albert. So in Alberta, there's a watershed framework. So the province has this framework in which they like you to do watershed planning. And one of the first things they suggest you do is a state of the watershed report. And this is really just an inventory or survey of all the information that is available on the watershed. And it really provides a benchmark in which you can plan your next steps and also kind of track how you're doing. So it really evaluates the current knowledge and documented data gaps. So overall, this report looked at 15 different indicators and gave an overall grade of fair to the watershed. Some of the challenges that it did indicate, though, or did find, was that there was rapid urban development occurring in the watershed. A lot of agricultural intensification too, a lot of greenhouses and secondary agricultural type of developments. A loss of natural areas, riparian buffers and wetlands was very significant. Low and fluctuating water levels, although this last year we've had very high water levels, so really variability in the lake levels or water levels. High nutrient inputs and poor water quality in general, whether it's a river, a creek, or a lake. And a lot of increase in stormwater runoff and pollution. And that again is kind of comes hand in hand with urban development. So the more you develop, typically the faster your stormwater runs off, and you typically get more fluctuating or variable situations. And then lastly, definitely some on the aquatic health side, some blue-green algae blooms have occurred in some of our lakes reoccurringly. There's been some fish kills or winter kills in creeks and rivers. And recently, there's been a lot of invasive species that have made it into the watershed. So invasive species are things like flowering rush, which is the middle picture there, that is really spreading through Isle Lake and the Sturgeon River. And on the bottom is a photo of some Asian goldfish that were collected in a stormwater pond in St. Albert. So really the report recommended four things, or three things, was one, to establish a municipally led watershed group. And why municipalities? Well, municipalities have the biggest control over land development. And when you really look at a watershed, although it drains into a water body, really the reflection of the health of that water body is really from the land use or the development that's occurring. So really land use is the key to good watershed management. It also recommended to fill in some information gaps by completing some more technical reports. And then it also suggested, once you have that, to draft an integrated watershed management plan. 3 steps which we have pretty much completed. So in terms of the first one, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, which is really a sub-watershed group of the North Saskatchewan, formed it in 2014. It was just after the 2013 election. And this was really from the elected officials. So whether it is Stony Plain or Sturgeon County or Lac St. Anne, they were all hearing the same thing from the residents. There was concerns about water quality, or there was flooding, or there was drought. So there was a lot of water issues that elected officials were hearing about. So the group actually then approached the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance and said, we really would like to start this group, and would you help facilitate that? So the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance is not the only sub-watershed group that we help. We help one in Vermilion, which also has about 10 municipalities that participate. And then we also have a kind of a multi-watershed group, the Headwaters Group, which is the Modeste and Strawberry watersheds, so everywhere from Rocky Mountain House to Devon. So we really do try to facilitate municipal groups. If they want to do something, we're always there to help them. And of course, watershed management at a sub-watershed level is really more effective. And I say this is because local issues are best dealt with local solutions. You guys know your residents, you know your area. And really, when it comes to developing a plan, you are the ones that really have to choose and provide the options for what you want to do. So right now, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance has 12 municipalities that are participating, which is really a great number of participants. Actually, it's the highest number of all the watersheds. So I'm very proud of the group. And in addition to that, Alberta Environment has a permanent seat at this table as well, which is again a very good sign. They're taking what we're doing very seriously. They're looking for this information to feed into their systems and provide them with information. And then we also have some other local stewardship groups that are participating. And then, of course, the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. We always like to be at the table and help facilitate. So the second thing the report said was to fill in the information gaps. So by having this multi-municipal group together, we were able to apply for over $500,000 worth in grants. So the largest was from the Alberta Community Partnerships Program, but we also, NSWA was able to get some from the Environmental Damages Fund, which is a federal program, and some smaller Alberta-based programs. So North Saskatchewan Watershed coordinated the grants, so we took the money in, did the bookkeeping, managed the invoices, as well as the consultants, which is a task, but it's something that we're suited to, and a lot of the municipalities are participating, don't have a lot of staff to help. So we are more than happy to manage that. But saying that, all of the reports were vetted by municipal staff first, and then provided to the steering committee, the elected officials, with kind of a summary and then what the implications were. And with each report, we came back and we said, is there some direction? Which way do you guys want to go? What are some of the options you guys want to look at? So this has really been a report that is really reflective of input from the municipalities. And all these reports, and there's about 10 of them, are available on our website. There is a special webpage just for the Sturgeon River Watershed Group. So really quickly, just kind of skimming over some of the technical reports that we completed. There was one done on water quality, which was a historical review because Alberta Environment had done some water quality sampling in the past. But then actually we did a full year's worth of water quality sampling, which was a first for the Sturgeon River and its creeks as well. So very significant, really good information to start with. Also on surface water quantity, so the water balance. So really talking about what's coming in terms of water and what's leaving. And a big part of that is the license allocation. So how many licenses are there on not only the Sturgeon River, but on some of the major creeks and the lakes? And then we look at that balance and determine, is there enough water within these water bodies to meet not only economic needs, but then the aquatic health needs. Groundwater, we also did a groundwater report. And there's very little information known on groundwater in this area. But really a very good report. It found out some very interesting facts about the recharge and discharge areas within the watershed. Again, really first time we've had this information. Aquatic ecosystem health, we did a riparian habitat condition assessment of all of the creeks, lakes, and the main stem of the Sturgeon River, which again was the first time it had ever been done. We did fish habitat condition assessment, again, going down the creek, looking at major cross sections about what is the habitat there, is there fish populations, what about some of the smaller critters, which are really good indicators of health. And then last but not least, really land cover and land use and policy alignment. So one of the things that the technical and the steering committee really found was that a lot of municipalities are doing some really good work, but they're often doing it in very different areas. So the direction we got was, let's look at what this municipality is doing, say in groundwater, and let's share it between us. If there's a really good policy that we can all share, then let's use it. The same thing with City of Edmonton, has some really good information on wetland conservation. So is there some way we can adapt that for our situation? Lac St. Anne has some great overlay maps that their planners find very useful when looking at development. Is that something that we could use? So some very positive results. So the watershed management plan really takes all of that information, all of that input we've received for the last 3 years, and tries to put it into one short, succinct document. Not an easy task. We are lucky, we have NSWA hired a consultant, Petra Rowell, who is very, very good at this and has done it for 2 decades. So really what does the plan do? It provides a watershed approach to water management. So water doesn't care whether it's in this municipality or that one. It crosses borders, it moves, it might flood in one area but veer in a dry another. So a watershed approach makes sure that you look at it in that point of view. A management plan is supposed to be iterative and adaptive, so every time we get new information or we get new direction, it's easy to update and refine. It's supposed to have really clear goals, and it's also supposed to have performance measures. So if we're going to have a goal, how are we going to measure if we're making a difference? It is really working towards a voluntary alignment. So one thing about a water management plan is that it is voluntary, it is advice. But then again, if it's coming from your joint municipalities, hopefully all of the alignment will ring true to you. The province is also putting forward a North Saskatchewan River land use framework. It was started with the 2 governments ago, and it should be continued. It's been, Minister Nixon has said he's going to move forward on it for this area. And this kind of information can feed into that type of provincial planning document. Also on a regional scale, the Edmonton Metro Region Board, we've been working with them very closely and really sharing any information we have. They're very interested in our GIS information, so our mapping information, particularly on riparian areas and wetlands, which is an area that they really have in the growth plan, and they're looking at moving forward on. So definitely being shared, and really a lot of attention paid to the work that's going on. Really, the management plan is also supposed to coordinate intermunicipal collaboration, and some of you have already been doing this. So as much as the plan is, we're just getting it to you now, a lot of the data has already been here. So like I said, the GIS information has already been shared, not only with Edmonton Metro Board, but all of your staff. So you all have it. It's information for you to use right now, and a lot of municipalities are using it right now in development decisions. So that's a great plus. The other thing is the City of Calgary has been in contact with us. They're coming up with a riparian health plan for the Bow River in result of the 2013 floods, and they're very interested in the work that we're doing on our riparian health. So you guys are really leading in the province and really causing a lot of attention to be drawn to the work you're doing. And really, again, the management plan will promote local and regional stewardship actions. So again, you know, local solutions to local problems. So with any good plan, there is a vision. And I have to say this out loud because Anne-Lisa is so proud of this vision and the work that the steering committee did on it. But really, the Sturgeon River watershed is recognized and valued as a natural prairie river system that connects our communities and adds to our quality of life. It's healthy, sustaining its ecological structure, processes, functions, resiliency within its range of natural variability, and that's very important. It is collaboratively stewarded by rural landowners, urban residents, and Indigenous communities, and is managed with knowledge and ecological integrity as a foundation for decision-making that balances social, cultural, economic, and environmental well-being. Really a great vision. So in a nutshell, there's 6 really key outcomes that the report talks about. It's that the well-informed decision-making leads to aligned policies and plans. So really, that was really one of the low-hanging fruits that everybody said. There's some really great policy out there. Let's see if we can align it. All residents have access to safe, secure drinking water supplies. And this came out of the groundwater report, where we found that 80%, if not more, of rural residents get their drinking water from groundwater. And some of the information we found on the groundwater about we need to protect those sources of groundwater for those residents. Aquatic ecosystems, including rivers, lakes, and wetlands and other water bodies, are healthy. That's an outcome. We need reliable, quality water supplies available for a sustainable economy. One of the reports the Edmonton Metro Region Board is focusing on now is the Regional Agricultural Master Plan. And a lot of things that are in that report are talking about intensified agriculture and secondary or tertiary agricultural type of developments, which often need water. So we really need to make sure that we have the reliable water supplies. And then wise land use, and that's where you guys come in, ensures the cumulative effects of the growth and development are mitigated for, and it's resilient to climate change. And individuals and communities are well prepared for flood and drought events. So again, something we've seen over the last few years, very extreme weather events. So the committees both felt that this was important to look at. And then lastly, you know, residents and stakeholders support the watershed management plan and are willing to participate in local initiatives to improve watershed health. So really, how is it going to be implemented? Again, the direction from the committees was that we wanted to have a 10-year work plan. We wanted to take our time, make progress. A lot of municipalities have a lot of other things going on and they want it to be paced. You know, we can't do everything all at once. So let's take 10 years, really do an in-depth review every 5 years, and really importantly, just continue to collaborate and continue to meet. So really the strategies and actions that we're going to be moving forward on in the near future are around the riparian areas, around floodplain and other hazard land identification, something that the planners really said would be useful to them. Developing the riparian and wetland protection and restoration strategies, developing a basin-wide monitoring and evaluation framework. So again, we have 1 year worth of water quality. It'd be great to continue that so we can monitor. And then continue to educate ourselves and others about the benefits of a healthy and resilient watershed. So just to wrap up, so what are we asking? So October, we provided the draft watershed management plan through Eric, and hopefully you've distributed it and you can see it. If not, we can send it to you as well. And really what we're looking for is, does it confirm the input that we've received from you? Some of you may have been at our May 27th workshop, where we had all of the elected officials and all of the senior management come together and take a look at the very draft of the report and really provide us with some really strong direction. Did we capture your thoughts? Is everything here? So this again is just to confirm that we've heard everything. This month also we're looking for support for new funding for implementation of the plan. The last grant that we received that really helped move forward was the Alberta Community Partnerships Grant. So we are probably going to be applying for that. I shouldn't say probably, we are going to be applying for it. The NSWA will take care of doing the application, and we have a champion. So the Summer Village of Silver Sands is going to be the champion for it. So we're really just looking for support from the members with just supporting the application. So the deadline is January for that. So we're going to put together the application, and then we're just looking for the councils to pass a resolution to support the application for funding to continue the work of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. So we are proposing to apply for about $235,000, and again, it will be for those action items identified by the committees. And then in the new year, what we'd love to do is to come back to you and ask for your acceptance of the watershed management plan. So as we get the input, we're going to incorporate everything, hopefully have the final, and be able to come back to you and say, you know, this is it. And really, the resolution we have drafted up is, again, input from the steering committee. So it's to accept the final Sturgeon River Watershed Alignment Plan, to continue to work collaboratively to implement the plan, and to consider the plan recommendations in the development of new or updated statutory documents and in the decision-making of the municipality. So it's really to inform and support your statutory documents. It's not meant to be to add to it or anything. It's really meant to complement it. And that was something we heard very strongly from both of the committees. So with that, hopefully, I captured it all in a nutshell, and I'm very open to answering any questions that you might have.
Right, thank you for your presentation, and that was very, very informative to see what the NSWA is doing. Members of the council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Loy?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I echo the comments. A nice report, and it was a good read, so I appreciate it. One thing, Sturgeon River. Any chances of bringing the sturgeon back?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, what I like to tell people is that it took 100 years to get it the way it is. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of changes have happened in that time. A lot of agricultural development has occurred in the 100 years. You know, roads, oil and gas, a lot has happened. So I think absolutely there is hope for the Sturgeon River, but we have to be patient. If it took 100 years to get this way, it might take 100 years to get it back. But even look on a 50-year time span, yeah, which is really the time span of most of your municipal development plans or the vision that you should have for your community. It's very attainable in that time. So just think, it took us 5 years to do this, and you know, a lot of hard work. So it's not going to be overnight, but definitely there is some really good indications that there's a lot of great stretches in the river. The lakes as well are doing, some areas of them are doing really well. Some are not, but definitely some actions that we can take to help that.
Thank you, and I hope you do get the sturgeon back. But Mr. Mayor, one other question, please. I've been along that watershed area, a lot of it, different times, and there are quite a few large petrochemical and oil companies and stuff like that. I'm hoping that they are supportive of your cause. It would be a great community relationship thing for themselves. I'm just wondering what kind of success you may have with those types of organizations.
Well, in the Sturgeon River Technical Committee, we don't have an oil and gas representative at this point. But the North Saskatchewan Watershed has an 18-member board, and we do have oil and gas sectors represented there. And they have been very supportive of any of the work, especially the ones we're doing with municipalities. Mm-hmm. They have done synergy groups. I'm not sure if you've heard those, but in communities where there is a lot of oil and gas, they have something called a synergy group. And it's where they work with the communities. And they said, this is the best way to make change. So they're very supportive of us working with local communities and municipalities to make change.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Councilor Lowry?
Thank you, Your Worship. This is more a question to administration. Obviously, we're right in the middle of our MDP review and getting that redone. That should be coming to us over the next little while. I know we've got some workshops. Our current MDP, Direction 1 is environmental responsibility. Will this report and some of the contents of this report be considered and some of it recognized within the upcoming MDP?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Lowry, so the environment was one of the areas that we focused on in this update. So we'll have a look at this report and compare it to what we have in the revised draft version, and you know, look to see what we might want to incorporate or change based on the feedback we have today.
Thank you very much. And then just a further question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And this one's for our presenter here. You mentioned a couple of things in regards to low fluctuating water levels, so on and so forth, and then I know it has recognized a little bit in the plan that the town of Stony Plain does have some dewatering licenses, and we have a dewatering program. I'm wondering, is there anything in specific that you can speak to about the dewatering program and how that impacts as to whether there could be a potential benefit or whether there's potential pitfalls of having that program? Essentially, any information that maybe has come forward and come to light through this that, you know, can help us as we continue further on with that program.
Well, that did come up in when we did the water allocation review. So we did see the licenses that Stony Plain does have for dewatering, and it is quite extensive. It is a lot of water that you're moving. So we didn't delve into whether it was having any major effects on the flows of the creeks or the river, but we did recognize that it was occurring. One of the areas of the planning alignment might interest you is we're also doing alignment on stormwater management. So again, a lot of municipalities have said we have local flooding issues or we have high groundwater issues. We'd love to have some sort of planning alignment that would help us with these issues. So again, we have some municipalities that have some very progressive stormwater management, not only in their MDP, but their engineering standards that we can share. And again, it would be up to you what you choose and what you choose to adopt. But there are some municipalities that are very, very progressive on that front and are willing to share it with other municipalities.
That's good. And just to further your worship, so in the presentation you talked about low and fluctuating water levels. I guess maybe a little bit more direct, I guess, is there any possibility with this dewatering program that the town of Stony Plain could contribute to improving those water levels?
Again, we haven't looked into it in detail.
Okay.
Really, the variation or fluctuations we're seeing now are largely because of either stormwater runoff or loss of wetlands and riparian areas. So again, as you develop, the water becomes flashier, right? So you get that massive increase and decrease. But we haven't looked at it in detail. I know that, I think at one point, Stony Plain was part of the Big Lake Stormwater Management Plan. That was done in 2005, where we looked at regional drainage issues, and I know they looked at that in a bit of detail, but I can't say that I can talk to it immediately.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On one of your slides, I think it was titled, "How Can Council Help?" One of the points was to continue funding SRWA. Yeah, support for new funding for implementation of the plan. So we've just been through our corporate plan, and so any mention of new funding sends flashes through our eyes. So could you explain that a little bit as to what that expectation would be?
So this is just purely applying for the grant funds to do the future studies. So as some of you are aware, we do get contributions from municipalities, but it's voluntary. So 50 cents per capita we get from probably about 41 municipalities across the whole watershed. But that's not what this is talking about. This is purely just for us to apply for a grant so you guys can keep moving forward.
So is it a grant that we pay some and then they pay some?
No, it's 100% covered, so you don't have to pay anything.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the best kind of grant there is.
Yeah, there is. One other question, Mr. Mayor. I know that the town of Stony Plain pays to belong to SRWA. And is that part of the 41 municipalities that you were talking to about the contribute?
I don't believe Stony Plain does contribute to North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance.
Oh, not North Saskatchewan.
Or the sturgeon. So really, if they contribute to the North Saskatchewan, and then we help facilitate the groups. So at this point, we're just asking for your participation. We're not asking for any funding. So I like to say, I like to put, my money where my mouth is. If you guys feel after several years that there's value to belonging, you can contribute. You can still belong and you do not have to contribute. I want to make that really clear. It's a voluntary contribution. So it's totally up to you. I also understand the municipalities are getting very hard hit by the provincial budget as well. So again, really, number one, I want you guys to continue to participate. If you want to look at funding, fine. But in the meantime, we're going to apply for grants so that you guys can continue your work and keep moving forward, which is really the main purpose of the NSWA, is to move this forward.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Matthews?
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a technical question. I didn't understand it. Hopefully you can explain, or maybe administration. It is with regards to, it was on page 44 out of 128 of our package, and it was on residential housing. It said designed and constructed, our residential housing is designed and constructed at elevations that are higher than normal groundwater level to ensure the dewatering does not occur and that subsurface flows are maintained. And then it says managing activities around shallow groundwater, ensuring sump pumps do not affect the subsurface flows. Can you explain that to me, like exactly?
That was brought up in the workshop. So a lot of the detailed information that's in there were actual comments from elected officials or technical people. So one of the issues that some of the municipalities are facing is that there's housing developments being put in very high groundwater areas, and they don't have a dewatering system. So what they want to do is they want to try to avoid going into areas of high groundwater. And to then, because in a few neighborhoods I've had, is that the sump pump systems are a continual problem, not just only for the municipality, but for the residents. So what they're saying is let's be really smart about where we plan and try to avoid those areas. So it's probably a little bit too much detail for this report, but really that's what they're talking about. If we don't have it in a high groundwater area, let's not develop there.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. Over the last couple months in town of Stony Plain, we've had abnormal waterfall in our community and just throughout the region here. We also had two significant flooding events in town of Stony Plain on July 7th and July 15th. And when we had the presentation on storm management in our community, one of the things you mentioned is we have to look at storm management as a region and not just within each municipality. So I raised the question when we had that conversation is, talking to a lot of farmers and residents around the Big Lake area, they've seen it dwindle and kind of recede over the course of 50 years. Is it a possibility that town of Stony Plain uses Big Lake as our storm management facility where we can get our water out of our community faster into Big Lake, therefore it holds the water there and lets it go down to the sturgeon? Because directly we don't tie into the sturgeon until after Big Lake. And I've seen the other side of St. Albert where the sturgeon is at places that trickle.
And again, it would depend on what year you were at. So this year was very unusual. It was high water everywhere. So Big Lake was higher than normal. Sturgeon at St. Albert was higher than normal. All the flow stations were higher than normal. Lac St. Anne was extremely high. We actually went out to Lac St. Anne and talked with some individuals because the water was so high and they're like, we need to get rid of the water. And I tried to show them the flow diagrams, and really it was the sturgeon is full, Big Lake is full, even the North Saskatchewan was full. There was nowhere to put the water. So, I mean, any type of change or drainage that you're going to move your stormwater into a natural water body, Alberta Environment will want to look at that and provide a drainage approval. Really, if you're going to look at that sort of thing and you're going to be outside your municipal boundaries, you might want to do an inter-municipal stormwater plan and look at what the implications would be. Because, of course, the last thing you want to do is put more water into, say, Adam Creek and then Big Lake, and then it causes flooding in the communities downstream. So yes, I think the last 10 years we've had fairly low water levels, but I think we're moving into a decade now where we're going to see higher than normal levels of water. And that was one thing we found when we looked at the historical levels, is that there's almost a 10-year pattern where you have 10 years of kind of low levels, and then the next 10 are quite high. So I think we're moving into a 10-year high. So when you do regional stormwater planning, you need to look at the last 100 years. And then you also have to look ahead and say, what are the things that are going to change and possibly affect the stormwater drainage on that watershed scale? So I wish it was an easy answer, but you're on the right track in terms of looking at possible solutions and looking at it on a larger scale.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Any other questions before we move on? See none? Councilor Meyer, do you want to say something since you're the board appointee?
Well, I think you guys all have a quick understanding of sort of the complexities of water. I mean, one thing I certainly appreciate since I've gotten on council is water certainly crops up in a lot of our discussions, especially Stony Plain being Stony Plain. So understanding the effects our decisions make, not just here, but down the stream, it has a value. So just that.
So thank you very much, and we look forward to your ongoing work.
Absolutely. And I brought some calendars for council and some staff, hopefully.
Okay, sure.
It's our 20th anniversary next year, North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, so we made some calendars. I know I'd given one to Eric already, but I promised I'd bring some for the rest of you, and I'm supposed to give it to the recording secretary.
Yes,
I've been told,
you
so-
just leave on the table, and we'll take care of that later.
Well, thank you so much, and I do apologize for being late.
No problem.
I like to do things.
That's not a worry, and we thank you for just being here on by yourself and not getting into an accident yourself, so thank you very much. Well, Council, that was a very informative presentation. Now moving on to statutory public hearings. We have none tonight. So moving on to adoption of council minutes from the organization meeting on the 28th and also the RCM of the 28th. Councillor Loy, if I can have a motion, please.
Yes, Your Worship, that town council approved the town council meetings as presented, 6.1 and 6.2.
Okay. Members of the council, have you had a chance to read through the minutes? Any errors or omissions to those minutes? Okay, see none. Go ahead, Councillor Meyer.
Just a question. I believe October 28th was the day that Councillor Palechko was sworn in as the deputy mayor. Am I, sorry, yes, it is correct. But I started the meeting as deputy mayor, so I'd like that reflected in the minutes, please.
Usually we don't do that because it was on the organization meeting, and then that just changes over at then.
Okay, fine.
So that's a good point, but usually we just do that at the beginning of the meeting, so that therefore it just says deputy mayor. Okay, any other questions, comments? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. There are no minutes from our council boards, commissions, etc. We're not dealing with any bylaws tonight or any business items, so we'll skip to council information and council discussion. Councilor Loy, you're first up.
Boy, that was fast. I wasn't prepared to talk until 8.
Just start the other end.
I'm going to be very brief. A good Remembrance Day for those. I saw most everybody there at the on council and some of our people that work at the town. It's very important to myself. I think it's very important to other people as well. And I'm glad we had a great attendance, and it was a special day.
Thank you. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a question for administration. Along Highway 779, there is, just across from the red, there's a building, a house, that looks like it's having some infill or densification. I was under the impression, and it would make sense to me based on if you're going to densify that, you know, you would do so with parking in mind. Anyhow, I was under the impression that these could be mother-in-law's type suites and above garage type development and densification. This particular unit looks like, I don't know, almost like a second house on the same yard. I'm curious, is that house going to be torn down? Is there going to be two, essentially it looks like two houses on there. I'm just curious if administration has anything to let me know about that, or could.
Your worship, I'm just looking over at the general manager. He gave me a bit of a nod that he's not specifically sure about this particular site. I know the site you're talking about. I guess we would just have to check in with staff on, you know, I mean, what approvals were granted and how they fit. I think that's the general question I believe I'm hearing. And we can just provide that via some form of email update as to how the type of permitting and how it's and what is allowed in that particular district.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Nope. Councilor Lorry?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Actually, I'll just add to Councillor Meyer's comments. There's also another one being built in by Stony Plain Central School that is a tiny home concept. And I had the opportunity to actually speak with the resident who's constructing it, who's also, I believe he was an architect. And he actually had great praise for the town and the town's administration on how easy it was to work with them in respect to getting the permits, how great the town had been with them. So I just wanted to pass that on as well. I think it's awesome that we're seeing unique projects like this starting to pop up in our community. We know that, you know, there's various trends that do and do not take off in different areas. And so I think this is one that I'm interested to see how these first couple turn out and what it does for our community and whether that continues moving forward. I sent it in an email, but I also wanted to recognize in council chambers this evening a big commendation and kudos to our Public Works Department. Obviously, we've had a little bit of the winter weather over the last while, especially over a long weekend, a holiday weekend. And during that time, I was in and amongst many different communities in the capital region here, and I'd have to say I believe the care we got in Stony Plain was second to none. It was absolutely fantastic, at least the roads that I was traveling on through town, between our plowing, our sanding, so on and so forth. So thank you very much for that. As well as Councillor Loy, our Attendance Day, or our Remembrance Day ceremony was absolutely fantastic, and I was blown away at the attendance, the attendance levels that we had. It's great to see our community come out in mass to a celebration and of remembrance such as that. You know, I think our Heritage Pavilion parking lot was overflowing. There were that many people at the ceremony. So again, kudos to the town for participating in that and supporting the Legion on that. Deputy Mayor Pleshko and I had the opportunity today to attend the unveiling, I guess you would call it, of the largest rooftop solar array in Canada at a company called Freedom Cannabis in Atchison. And afterwards, we received a tour of the facility, which I must tell you was very eye-opening, very intriguing. And so, given some of the conversations we've had over the last couple of weeks with some of our bylaws and that, I'm looking forward to seeing what opportunities may present themselves for Stony Plain and how these climate projects may continue to move forward and with the different business and industry they have. So, other than that, Your Worship, that's what I have this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Matthews?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of things. So first of all, with regards to on Golf Course Road, the access going into Hyde Park, there are walk lights. A resident told me they were solar, and then that they don't work in the wintertime. So when they try to cross, they don't have lights, and then the vehicles get angry with them as they're trying to cross. So if there's some way we can add either additional sign or better light system, because that's a pretty fast road there, and it's hard to see people crossing. Secondly, with regards to Heritage Park, we just talked about the parking lot flowing on Monday with vehicles. And just I thought at the time, because we sat for quite a long period of time as we watched everybody nicely and orderly leave, if there was a way we could have another exit to the southeast side of the parking lot, and just a thought I had, would make things a whole lot more efficient exiting that parking lot. The third, I had the privilege of walking November 7th with my husband and with Councillor Ann-Lisa Jensen from Parkland County, members of the Parkland RCMP, Stony Plain Rotary, all supporting the Parkland and area response to Family Violence Society. And basically, it's just an organization that is working very hard to support individuals that are victims of family and violence and to prevent it. Together, we completed the first annual Domestic Abuse Awareness and Support Candlelight Walk. There was about 20 of us. Hopefully next year there'll be 100 of us walking. And then we went to the Tri-Leisure Center, enjoyed some hot chocolate that was generously supplied by Perks Coffee House. And then, I don't know if Judy's going to talk about... No? Okay, so I'll continue on. So with Councillor Judy Bennett and Councillor Annalisa Jensen, Spruce Grove Councillors Dave Oldham and Michelle Grocke, we attended the Red Shoe Gala on Saturday evening. This is another fundraiser to stop abuse in families, and that's the organization is called SAFE. The society just works really hard to support victims, and we heard some amazing stories, success stories of people who had been victims of family violence, and then through organizations like SAFE were able to find their way to a better life. So it was a very good evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The biggest thing that came to my mind was that downtown is open, and we are open for business. The other day when all the barricades came down, I was busy, but that evening I could have gone straight on home down 779, but I had to make a detour to travel down our beautiful Main Street. So kudos to our department for getting that done, and can hardly wait till next year, get the next part finished.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Your Worship. Just a couple of things over the last week and a bit. I've had a couple of opportunities to attend the Royal Canadian Legion musical at the Winspear Centre. Phenomenal event. If you've never had a chance to go to it and listen to the music, it is something that very moving and inspirational. Also Friday, I attended the Rehoboth Remembrance Day, and again, that's a very unique event with the clients from the Rehoboth attending. Very enlightening and intriguing to attend that as well. As well as I sit on another committee within our community that's not community related, but it is community related. It's Compete to Contribute, a local group of businessmen that get together to support youth in the community of the Tri-region. And what they encourage is the youth from different organizations to participate in acts of kindness in the community and to move things forward. I'm quite excited. I was a mentor for the local youth center here, and they competed in it, and they have won for the second time. So they've combined an event that was speed dating for seniors that they put on last year. They continue to have the seniors come down to their center for functions that they can intermingle with the seniors. They now go to the senior center as youths and feel very welcomed at. This new event that they did this year was quite intriguing. It was an event that the underprivileged in our community give back to the underprivileged in our community. And what they did was they decided they wanted to have everybody go to school with school supplies. So there was names provided from the schools within our community to the youth center, and they put together some backpacks and some new school supplies. When it started out, there was about 9 that come to mind. At the end was well over 20. Weren't sure where they were going to get the backpacks from. We're a little unsure of what they were getting for school clothing and stuff like that. It was a bit of a ask for help from the seniors, because the seniors continue to tell them that they would help at any time. So that was well put together. There was a bit of a hiccup in their system. They wanted to give the youth as well new haircuts to go to school with, so they looked like the rest of the students, as well as an opportunity for some clothes. And what happened was, unfortunately, one of the individuals that was going to give haircuts was unable to do it. So it kind of looked like there was not an opportunity for them to go to school with new haircuts. However, another opportunity arose shortly afterwards where a local individual was talking to Cheryl over at the youth center and offered to do the haircuts for no fee, one-time deal. That is now carried on every month that the youth can come to the youth center and get their hair cut. They can go in the back room and pick up some clothes if they need, and it's an ongoing thing. So I'm quite excited that they have been chosen again for the reason that they did and can continue to combine the two youth groups together. So they placed second, which was very good for our youth center. So they've been able to be funded again. So next year they'll be able to do that program as well. So I look forward to the next Compete to Contribute within our community. And I would encourage everybody in this room, if you know of a youth group in the community that does not want to fundraise and is looking for a way, this is an incredible way to give back to the community and have a chance to compete and work with mentors to move your club ahead without having to use your parents to help in the whole organization. So it's a great organization to move forward.
Thank you for the update, and thank you for sharing that story, Deputy Mayor. And before we move into closed session, just a couple of calendar highlights is, I think, 13th, we'll be attending the TELUS Innovation Center. Just looking at some maybe things that we can bring back to our community with that. I believe Councillor Mattis is attending with me at the same time as well. And also that evening is the Chamber Awards sponsorship appreciation kind of get together. So if you're able to come, stop by there and just say hi and thank you to all our sponsors, and maybe even thank a few of the award recipients are there as well. As well, on the 16th is the 6th annual Spruce Up Your Life variety show hosted by Light Up for Your Life Society, and they raise money for the palliative care in the community. As well, on the 22nd, Parkland Turning Points is also having a spaghetti dinner, and they help with domestic violence and people in our community that needs a little help. So if you're available, they should be on your calendar. If you accepted it, then we'll see you there. If not, we'll hear stories about it. Okay, with that, we'll need a motion to go into camera again. Oh, yes. Yes, I forgot that. Actually, the Christmas light up is on the 21st this year. I think festivities start at 6:30-ish. And I think light up, it's a little after 7:30 is correct. And it's always a great time for everybody to come down and just get a little bit of that Christmas spirit going. Again, the businesses are doing a few things around the little 2-block radius. The downtown is open, which is very good. So we'll have a great evening and event. Again, if you come, don't expect to hear any speeches because the audio is very, very bad. We're in an open air area, and we don't have the funds to make sure that it's very audible. So we're just here to actually bring joy to a lot of the kids and students that come out, and even some of the seniors and people that want to see the Christmas season kicked off. Okay. Before going to closed session, again, closed session is an area of time where council discusses a few things that are not privy to the public. There'll be a motion to go into closed session. We'll hear some reports. There'll be no motions in closed session except for the motion to come out. Anything that's going to be made as a motion to direct our administrative staff was made in public. And if anybody wants to leave their name, we'll call you back when we're finished the closed session, and we'll give you the opportunity to come back to the council. Okay, with that, Councillor Bennett, please.
That we move into closed session.
Okay, I'll call that question. All in favor? And clear up the room. Thank you very much. when we come out of closed session? Okay, seeing none, so we'll continue with our agenda. So move on to 12.1, specialized transit merge. Councillor Laurie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that council accept the report for information and direct administration to continue working with the City of Spruce Grove on the implementation of a regional accessible transportation service commencing in the first quarter of 2020.
Okay, thank you. Anything else to add, administration? Okay, members of council, we had a good lengthy conversation and presentation. Anything else to add? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And that comes to adjournment. So again, thank you, administration, for the reports and the conversation along with council. And council, thank you for reading the packages and bringing your A game to the table. With that, we're adjourned.